Hey, what's up, dude? And all Suicide and TJP fans. This is the second Q&A, and I was able to see the questions a little bit easier this time, and I made myself a little cue card. Sorry for the delay for today. I've been on the tour bus all day. I'm in Japan right now in the middle of a tour for the Best of the Super Juniors in New Japan. So I finally got checked in and settled in so I can shoot this video, and I guess we can get started. The first question was, do I prefer to be Suicide or Manic? And I guess it's kind of like a two-part answer. Simply, I'd probably prefer to be Suicide as it is, but I would prefer to be Manic. There's a lot more stuff I want to do as Manic that I wasn't able to do creatively, and I was able to sort of do a little bit the second time around, or this most recent time, but not completely. There's a lot of different stuff that I would have preferred to do as Manic, but I just didn't get a chance to, and the first time around the office didn't really understand a lot of it, and I think I covered that in the last Q&A a bit about, like, you know, portraying it more like the Great Muta or Finn Balor and the Demon, that sort of thing. But between the two, as they are, I probably prefer to be Suicide more so than Manic, only because I didn't get to really create what I wanted to do with Manic overall. And what's my favorite match as Manic or Suicide? I'd probably say the two favorites. There was a tag team match that I did in, I think, Scotland. I believe it was me and Sonata and the American Wolves. And if not that one, probably my favorite was in Boston. I did a pay-per-view with Slammiversary 2013, I think. Me versus Chris Sabin versus Kenny King. And the next question was from MGxStyles, if I said that right, MGxStyles, about my tattoos, what inspired me and what they mean, I guess, is, so I've always wanted to get tattoos, and, you know, like anybody else, you know, they all mean something to me, and for me is like kind of my life story a little bit. It took a while to get started. I wanted to do it when I was younger, when I was 20, 21 years old, but, you know, different places have different rules and they ask you not to do certain things. You know, Ring of Honor was trying to like commercialize a little bit more, and they asked to get clearance on stuff like that. Wrestling Society X was, Lucha Libre USA was the same way. I was Sadistico there, and it was a branded character, so they didn't want to just add stuff because, you know, they put out toys and things like that. And then same thing in TNA, especially when I took the sleeves off the Manic costume. You know, they didn't want it to be marked up too specifically, even though I was canon as the character. They just didn't want changes. And then WWE, same thing, and after a while I just, it took me a while to get clearance, and I just finally said, you know what, I would like to get started, because this is going on like 10 years I'm putting this off. And for the most part, everything on my right hand or my right arm is locations and landmarks for my life, you know, where I was born and places I've lived, you know, Mexico, Japan, all that, California, Los Angeles, Canada, everything. And then everything on my left arm is inspirations. You know, people wonder, because I have my name on my hand here, but I'm a junior, so it's actually for my dad. And I have like the Aswan character, which is an inspiration for, you know, my ideas for Suicide and Manic and a lot of stuff. And I have, you know, Eddie and Sean and Tiger Mask on the arm and stuff from my family. So this is all inspirations, and this is all locations for my life. Number 4 was designing my outfits as just anything, I guess, from Alonzo. So my outfits, you know, I've always really just tapped into what I like, especially like in WWE. You could see like it was a lot almost like streetwear, because I had like these jogger pants and I wore them in real life, and everything I've always designed has always been based on just things that I'm into. You know, for a while, even when I had normal-ish wrestling gear like trunks and, you know, shin guards or boots or whatever it was, and I had like checker print for a while just because of, you know, being an emo kid growing up and being really into pop punk and things like that. So, you know, you just kind of design, you know, what really, I guess, you're into, and for me, I always tried to think outside the box and how I can create a look that feels a little bit like anime, or a little bit like fashion, a little bit like, you know, real life clothes or whatever, and just you know, coming up with these looks, I guess. And traveling the world, you see how other countries and the wrestling cultures, they create their costumes and things for the ring, and then you get different ideas of how you can create it, and then you go from there. Number 5, from Larry: advice to get started into wrestling, and what's the hardest thing? You know, everybody has a harder something, you know, that's tougher than others. I didn't have a whole lot of things that were hard for me. I think that the hardest thing for most people is like a mental block on, like, you know, getting you know, roughed up and hurt. It's kind of hard, you know, still is hard to wrap your head around it. You know, taking your first bump, things like that. But you just kind of gotta just get started, you know, trust the process, and take it slow. And once you get past that mental block, you know, it's like learning a backflip or something that's like, you know, it's not natural to do, you know. And despite being like, people think I'm like this great athlete, but you know, even things like that, I mean, that's like, I have my own mental blocks like for things like that too, and you just kind of have to break the callus and give it a shot. But once you get past that, I mean, it's really not a hard thing to do. And really, my best advice is just to have fun, because if you stop having fun, then you're not gonna want to continue. You know, there's a lot of questions that you have to answer for yourself, and a lot of things that you'll need advice on in the future that you won't have a mentor for, and it's hard to stay motivated to keep doing it. So if you're not having fun, you're not going to look for those answers, you'll give up. So my best advice, and it sounds simplistic, but honestly, my best advice is to find ways to make it fun for yourself, or else it's not worth doing. You know, nothing in life is worth doing if you're not having fun. And then Ghost Rider asked, why the name change from Suicide to Manic? And why unmask? Because it felt unnecessary. So, you know, the unmasking, I think, was just because they really wanted to give the character a background, and they wanted people to know it was me. So they wanted me to be canon for the character. So I really just think that that was the reason for the unmasking, even though they didn't want the character to necessarily go away. But keep in mind too, they were also writing this at the time. They were writing it week to week. If I didn't do a good job, they would have just killed it after the first week when it came back. I just would have been, the character would have just been brought back for 1 week. But it was only because of the way I was portraying it that they thought, okay, we'll keep it going, and we keep it going, and we'll keep it going. And eventually they were like, we can't kill it. We have to keep it going. So initially they didn't know exactly where they were headed with it. But I think it was really just to help, like, make my backstory canon for the character and to reveal me a little bit more. And the name change was mostly a suggestion of mine. I think I answered this last Q&A too, but like that Boston match that I mentioned before, I had thought maybe it was about time. The company was getting bigger and was really like dipping into mainstream territory, and I thought maybe it was a time in the world where suicide as a character name was going to be hard to market, you know, for kids, toys, things like that. So I made the suggestion, and they agreed, and then they came up, I don't know who came up with Manic, but they came up with that, and I said that that's fine, that I could deal with that. But it was a suggestion that I made, and I think now the return of the suicide character in the last few years has mostly just been that, you know, with Marvel and different things, like the idea of branding a superhero fantasy character after something that seems so dark and violent, it's more acceptable because there's flexibility in the way you can portray it. You know, with Deadpool and just different things, like I think that there's a new understanding in the world of entertainment, like how to portray that in not such a grim light. But at the time it was a little bit different, you know, mainstream hadn't, you know, just it was a more difficult thing. I mean, literally it was only within the next couple of years after that that it became an easier thing to tell because of you know, big big studios and big companies doing stuff that sort of broke ground in that way, as far as the flexibility of using that sort of terminology. Let's see, number 7, was there any talk of bringing me back as Suicide instead of Manic? I think because there had already been new Suicides, they hadn't thought about bringing me back as Suicide necessarily, and the question was for Manic, because there was never another Manic after me. I think by the time they had dusted off the Suicide character, it was already somebody new, but they never really did that with Manic, so there was not any talk of bringing me back as Suicide, but I would have done it if they would have asked, because you know, I do love the character a lot. Did I design the Manic gear? The answer is yes, as far as from the blue, the blue and gold suit on. I did, and a friend of mine who was an artist that did animation for like King of the Hill and some other animated shows, and it's just an artist by trade, helped me come up with a concept of, like, you know, no sleeves on it, but added the hood and changing the mask so that it has certain elements like the same eye shape but open in certain parts. There were other ones that I had a little bit that were like half, it was still the skull mask but like only half, and so there were different versions of it in which you kind of got to see in the different colors, like when it turned to black and silver, and then when it turned to like the Pride of the Philippines colors and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I designed all that. I had never seen a hood on a bodysuit before, so I thought that that would be a cool element. So it's just something I wanted to do. Let's see, number 9. Have I thought about designing an original character similar to Suicide and Manic for, you know, on my own? And the answer is yes, actually. And I'm still designing it and thinking about it. And I wanted to get I'm working on getting a concept mask made. But it's similar to the way I wanted to portray Manic that didn't get off the ground. So in its current form, it's not similar to Suicide or Manic at all. It's not really superhero based, it's more macabre and horror based, so it would be more like Great Muda or like Fin Demon, that sort of thing, but that is how I wanted Manic to start evolving into, was something that was more almost like scary and more like mythology, less of a superhero. But yes, so the answer is yes in that regard, that I am trying to come up with a character, or I'm experimenting with one at the moment. Am I familiar with the Suicide X attire, and any thought of having done that? You know, I had thought about that, and I think if I were to ever portray Suicide, that would be like a fun, like, Easter egg sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a short answer, but yes. And 11, any promotion, what promotion would I like to tear it up as champ? And honestly, it'd be where I'm at right now in New Japan. I mean, they were always my favorite company. It was the company I always wanted to wrestle for, and they happened to be the first company to give me a shot. So it was kind of like, you know, you're growing up and you want to play for the Yankees or play for the Lakers, and if they end up drafting you right out of the gate, that's kind of how it was with me in New Japan, and getting to come back and be part of the company again is my dream. So if I had to pick a place, it'd be right here. And what's next for me, as the final question, hopefully IWGP Junior Golds, you know, whether the singles title or the tag titles. Hopefully I'll looking at maybe winning hopefully my team, the United Empire, we can win the IWGP Junior Tag titles. That would be a dream come true, because I've always wanted to be a junior champ in New Japan, the singles title and the tag titles, because I think it represents the greatest quality wrestlers in history, to be honest. And that looks like that's it. But thank you guys so much again for the Q&A. I hope that this video uploads okay, because it's kind of long, but I appreciate it, guys, and if there's a part 3, let me know. I would be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. But in the meantime, I will get back to my tour out here in Japan, and you guys enjoy the answers, and thank you so much for watching. God bless.